A week before my sister's wedding, I discovered the truth about why my parents wanted me there. Not to help finalize details, not to oversee the plans I had poured months into, but to babysit 10 loud, restless kids. The same wedding I had designed from scratch, decorated in full, and paid countless deposits for. I froze in the hallway as my dad casually said, "It'll save us money." Then came Mom's laugh, light and dismissive. "Claire doesn't have much going on anyway." My sister chimed in without hesitation. Their words hit me like acid poured straight into my chest, but I kept my face calm because right then I decided to give them exactly what they believed I was, someone invisible. And on the wedding day, they finally realized the one person missing was the very one who had built everything for them. People always claimed our family looked perfect from a distance. Sunday dinners where everything seemed warm, matching sweaters in every Christmas card, polite smiles in photos that could have been in a magazine. What they never saw was who actually cooked those dinners, who organized those holidays, who held that family together with invisible thread. That was me, Claire, the reliable one. The quiet sister who made things function smoothly so no one else had to move a muscle. And when Megan got engaged, I didn't hesitate for a single second. I offered to plan her entire wedding as my gift. No strings, no charge. For months, I sketched layout maps, tested color combinations, compared flower varieties, and spent evenings surrounded by candles, fabric swatches, vendor numbers, and endless lists. My living room turned into a creative hurricane. My parents bragged about our daughter, the talented event designer, to anyone who would listen, yet they never asked if I needed help. They never imagined I might need rest. They assumed, as always, that I would handle everything. I told myself it was love, the kind of family love that expects nothing in return. I wanted Megan's day to be perfect. She had always been the golden child, adored by everyone, breezy and spoiled in her confidence, used to the world adjusting for her comfort. I grew up picking up her slack, making excuses to cover her mistakes, smoothing the rough edges she left behind. When she hugged me after I offered to plan her wedding, she said, "You always know how to make things beautiful, Claire." I didn't realize she meant I knew how to make myself useful. The week before the wedding, Asheville was blooming with early spring, soft blue skies, air full of lilacs and rain. Every morning I drove across town to check deliveries and make sure every detail stayed on track. It was tiring work, but fulfilling. Until that night, I came home earlier than usual and paused at the bottom of the stairs when I heard their voices drifting from the living room. My father's tone was casual, like he was discussing groceries. "No need to pay for a sitter. Claire can manage the kids." My mother's laugh chimed in, then Megan's bright voice followed. "Yeah, she's great with kids. She won't mind." They had planned it without even asking me. 12 kids, from cousins to coworkers' children, basically turning me into a free childcare service during the reception. I leaned against the wall listening to my own name used like it belonged to a piece of equipment instead of a person. I wanted to walk in, confront them, demand respect, but I didn't. Instead, I slipped upstairs, opened my wedding binder, and stared at every neatly handwritten note, each color-coded page, each deposit I'd paid. The organized rows and lists that once made me proud suddenly felt like bars of a cage. That night, something cracked inside me. I realized I wasn't their daughter. In their eyes, I was a resource, free labor. And I knew long before morning that their perfect wedding would not unfold the way they expected. I didn't sleep. I lay awake watching the ceiling fans slice through the darkness, each rotation cutting deeper into years of swallowed hurt. Every small sound from downstairs haunted me, the hum of the refrigerator, the tapping of dishes, all reminders that this house only knew how to take from me. When dawn came, the anger was gone. What replaced it was emptiness, a numbness that settles after being dismissed for too long. I made coffee, answered a few client emails, and moved through the motions of a normal morning. But their words replayed on a loop. "She doesn't have much going on anyway." They didn't just belittle me, they erased me. That afternoon, I met my best friend Lydia at Copper Cup, a tiny cafe scented with espresso and wet pavement. She rushed in late, curls damp, laptop tucked under her arm. One glance at my face, and she didn't even sit before asking who crossed the line. I told her everything. Everything I had done for Megan. Everything my parents had planned behind my back. Lydia's face changed from shock to disgust. They said that word for word? Then she crossed her arms. Claire, that's not love. That's exploitation. I laughed quietly, bitterly. It's always been like this. I fix things. Then stop fixing. Let them deal with their own disaster for once. Her words hit like a jolt, waking something in me. When I got home, I opened my wedding binder again, the binder that held months of my time, my creativity, my energy. I flipped to the title page, where I'd written Megan Dawson Wedding in gold ink. Before I could think, I tore the page out. The rip was clean and quiet. I sat with the scattered pieces around me until a cold, steady calm settled in my chest. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up my vendor list. First was catering. I called the manager. "Hi, this is Claire Dawson. I need to cancel the catering for Saturday's wedding." A pause. "All of it?" "All of it." She mentioned the deposit. "Send the invoice to David Dawson." I ended the call. Next was decorations, then lighting, then rentals. Each cancellation was easier than the one before. I didn't yell, didn't complain, didn't explain. I simply dismantled the wedding piece by piece until there was nothing left but the hollow space where their expectations used to be. When the final email was sent, I leaned back and breathed for what felt like the first time in years. That evening, I booked a suite at a boutique hotel overlooking the French Broad River, just for the weekend, a place where I didn't have to fix anyone's mess. The confirmation email glowed on my screen. "See you Saturday." I smiled, and for once, it wasn't for anyone else. The next morning, vendor replies filled my inbox. Cancellations confirmed, contracts voided, deposits shifted. Each email loosened another knot in my chest. By noon, the Dawson wedding no longer existed. Only the chaos my family created remained. I forwarded every email and invoice to my father with one line: "Future correspondence should go to you." Later that day, I drove toward the Riverside Haven, the hotel I booked. The road twisted through warm sunlight and rolling hills. When I checked in, the clerk handed me a keycard. "Enjoy your stay, Miss Dawson." And for the first time, the name felt like it belonged to me. The suite smelled like cedar and linen. From the balcony, the river shimmered through the mountains. I set my phone to silent, ordered coffee, and let the world spin without me. By Friday evening, Megan's texts poured in. "Are the table runners in your car? The florist can't reach you." Panic threading through her messages. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a long bath, poured a glass of wine, and opened my laptop for something entirely mine. A blank document with a title idea: Dawson Designs. And for the first time in my life, the page felt like freedom. Not their name anymore, mine. The night before the wedding, I sat on the balcony, wrapped in a robe, watching the city lights flicker below. My phone buzzed again. Dad, this time. The next morning, vendor replies filled my inbox. Cancellations confirmed, contracts voided, deposits shifted. Each email loosened another knot in my chest. By noon, the Dawson wedding no longer existed. Only the chaos my family created remained. I forwarded every email and invoice to my father with one line: "Future correspondence should go to you." Later that day, I drove toward the Riverside Haven, the hotel I booked. The road twisted through warm sunlight and rolling hills. When I checked in, the clerk handed me a keycard. "Enjoy your stay, Miss Dawson." And for the first time, the name felt like it belonged to me. The suite smelled like cedar and linen. From the balcony, the river shimmered through the mountains. I set my phone to silent, ordered coffee, and let the world spin without me. By Friday evening, Megan's texts poured in. "Are the table runners in your car? The florist can't reach you." Panic threading through her messages. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a long bath, poured a glass of wine, and opened my laptop for something entirely mine. A blank document with a title idea: Dawson Designs. And for the first time in my life, the page felt like freedom. Not their name anymore, mine. The night before the wedding, I sat on the balcony, wrapped in a robe, watching the city lights flicker below. My phone buzzed again. Dad, this time. We need you at the park by 7 a.m. No excuses. I typed one reply. I won't be there. Then I turned the phone face down and left it on the table. It was quiet after that, the kind of quiet that felt earned. I thought about all the times I'd driven across town to rescue someone else's crisis, all the years I'd believed that being useful meant being loved. Now I knew better. When I finally went to bed, the sky outside had turned deep blue. Somewhere across town, they were still preparing for a wedding that no longer existed, and I slept better than I had in years. Saturday morning arrived bright and sharp, the kind of spring day every bride dreams of. Blue sky, warm sun, a breeze light enough to make the flowers dance. But across town, that dream was unraveling, thread by thread. I woke to sunlight spilling across the white sheets of my hotel bed, the smell of fresh coffee filling the room. I stretched slowly. No alarms, no rush, no obligations. For the first time in years, the morning was mine. I slipped into a robe and stepped onto the balcony overlooking the French Broad River. The water glittered, the city murmured below, and I let the calm soak into me. Then my phone started buzzing. Once, twice, then nonstop calls, texts, voicemails. I didn't need to look to know who it was. The first message flashed across the screen. "Megan, where are you? The caterers aren't here." I smiled. The coffee was still warm in my hand when the second message came. "Mom, Claire, please answer. Something's gone wrong." Then, "Dad, get to the park now." I set the phone down and took another sip, the taste of roasted beans and quiet satisfaction. The phone rang again, Megan this time, persistent as ever. I let it buzz until the ringtone looped twice, then answered just to hear the panic. Her voice came out high, cracked with desperation. "Claire, where are you? The tables are bare, the food's not coming, and there are kids, so many kids running around. No one knows what to do." I leaned against the balcony railing, eyes on the river. "Sounds like a mess, Claire." "This isn't funny," she snapped. "You were supposed to be here. We can't fix this without you." "Funny," I said softly. "That's exactly what you said about me a week ago, that you could handle everything." Her breath hitched. "You can't just walk away. It's my wedding." "And it was my work," I said, "but you didn't seem to care about that." There was a long silence, broken only by distant shouting on her end. Someone yelling about napkins, a child crying, maybe a guest arguing. I could picture it perfectly, the chaos blooming where my order used to be. Then Megan's voice cracked again. "Just please, Claire, I'm begging you." I let the moment hang just long enough for her to taste it. Then I laughed, quiet, almost kind. "Don't wait for me," I said, "and don't wait for the buffet." She gasped, and before she could respond, I hung up. The phone vibrated immediately again, but I let it ring until it went silent. For the next hour, I didn't check it once. I read a magazine, ordered room service, and took my time with breakfast. The world outside could spin however it wanted. I wasn't part of that storm anymore. By noon, the messages poured in. Lydia texted first. "Are you seeing what's happening online?" Followed by a photo, a candid from a guest's Instagram story. Rows of empty tables, wilted flowers, and a group of restless kids tearing through the park in formal clothes. The caption read, "When your planner quits on the wedding day, #chaos." I laughed out loud, not cruelly, just in disbelief at how poetic it all was. Then another text came from Pamela, one of my mother's friends. "Claire, I don't blame you one bit. They took advantage for too long. Everyone's talking. David's furious, Megan's crying, Linda's pretending she's sick. Total disaster." I set the phone aside and let the satisfaction sink in, not as vengeance, but as balance restored. By mid-afternoon, I went down to the spa for a massage I'd booked days earlier. The music was soft, the lights dim. As the therapist pressed gentle circles into my shoulders, I thought of every time I'd sacrificed my peace for theirs, every favor, every "could you just" that had stolen another piece of me. It was all gone now. When I came back to my room, my phone had 27 missed calls. Dad had left a voicemail, his voice heavy with fury and pride, swallowed by panic. "Claire, you've made your point. Come clean this up. You're embarrassing us." I deleted it without listening to the rest. Evening came and I stepped out onto the balcony again. From here, the city looked golden, the sun dipping behind the hills. I ordered a cocktail, the kind I'd always said was too expensive for me, and watched as the lights of downtown flickered on. Somewhere across Asheville, my family was still scrambling to put out a fire they'd started themselves. The next day, my inbox filled with aftermath. Pamela again, sending updates like news dispatches. They hired a last-minute catering service, sandwich trays for 150 people, cost them $3,000. Another, half the guests left early. People are calling it the most awkward wedding in town. I scrolled through each message, slowly absorbing the wreckage. Then came one from my cousin Matthew, who'd been there. "You were right to walk away," he wrote. "Uncle David tried to blame you, but everyone saw through it. Aunt Linda cried when the food truck showed up. Megan won't talk to anyone." I read it twice, then typed back, "Thanks, Matthew. Some lessons come expensive." That night, I poured another glass of wine and sat by the window, the city quiet beneath me. The chaos was over. The world hadn't ended. In fact, it felt like it was just beginning again, this time on my terms. When the phone rang once more, I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. It was Megan. Her voice was smaller now, stripped of the usual confidence. "Claire, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel used." I let her words hang. There was a time I would have filled that silence for her, softened it, forgiven her before she even asked, but not this time. "You didn't make me feel used, Megan," I said quietly. "You made me realize I was." She didn't reply. I heard a shaky breath, then a whisper. "We'll never fix this, will we?" I thought for a moment. "You never fixed it before," I said, "so why start now?" And with that, I ended the call. Outside, the last light of the day broke across the river like gold glass. I raised my glass to it and whispered, almost to myself, "To boundaries." 2 days later, I drove back home. The air felt lighter, the kind that follows a storm finally spent. My house was quiet. No voicemails, no texts, just peace. On the kitchen table, sunlight pooled over my laptop, still open to my new project folder, Dawson Designs. My first independent clients had already replied to my proposals with yeses. Then came a message from Aunt Valerie. "I was at the wedding," she wrote. "They deserved every bit of it. You did the right thing." Her words landed soft but steady, like a hand on my shoulder. I opened social media out of curiosity. Photos from the wedding were everywhere. Empty tables, kids in stained suits, guests leaving before the cake was cut. The caption said, "Enough disaster, mismanaged, no food." None of them mentioned my name. For once, the chaos didn't belong to me. That night, I poured tea and stood by the window, watching the streetlights blink on. Somewhere across town, my parents were probably arguing about who to blame. Megan was likely crying into her untouched wedding album. I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. Sometimes the only way to fix what's broken is to stop fixing it. A week later, I stood in my new office downtown, sunlight spilling through big glass windows, sketches pinned on the wall, my name printed on the door, Claire Dawson, event designer. My phone buzzed with a text from Lydia. "Told you they'd learned the hard way." I smiled, sipping my coffee. Maybe they finally did. Family doesn't mean servitude. Sometimes walking away is the loudest way to say enough. If you've ever had to draw a line with your own family, tell me in the comments below. Hit like, share this story, and subscribe for more true stories of quiet revenge and self-respect.